Who were the Sons of Liberty, and what role did they play in the American Revolution? This question invites us into a captivating chapter of history where ordinary men stood up against oppressive rule, sparking a revolution that would change the course of the world. The Sons of Liberty, an underground organization, emerged in the mid-18th century amidst growing discontent with British policies in the American colonies. Among its prominent figures were Samuel Adams, John Hancock, Paul Revere, and Dr. Joseph Warren. Samuel Adams, a fervent advocate for colonial rights, was one of the primary architects of the organization. He employed propaganda and rhetoric to galvanize public opinion against British rule. Meanwhile, John Hancock, a wealthy merchant and fervent supporter of colonial independence, provided the Sons of Liberty with much-needed financial support. The Sons of Liberty were instrumental in organizing protests, boycotts, and acts of civil disobedience against oppressive British rule. They orchestrated demonstrations, public gatherings, and meetings to express discontent and mobilize support for colonial resistance. Their tactics included circulating pamphlets, newspapers, and broadsides, disseminating anti-British sentiment, and rallying colonists around the cause of liberty. As the Sons of Liberty continued to stoke the fires of resistance, the tension between the colonists and British soldiers grew. The atmosphere was charged with anxiety and anticipation, like a powder keg waiting to explode. Among the colonists, there emerged a figure of significance. Crispus Attucks, a man of African and Native American descent, a sailor and a dock worker, a man who would soon become a symbol of the struggle for liberty. Attucks was no stranger to the harsh realities of colonial life. He knew the sting of oppression, the burden of taxation without representation, and the bitter taste of injustice. He shared the sentiments of the Sons of Liberty, the yearning for freedom, and the desire to resist British rule. On the fateful night of March 5th, 1770, Attucks was present at the confrontation that would later be known as the Boston Massacre. When the British soldiers met the angry crowd, Attucks was at the forefront, leading the charge against the Redcoats. As tensions escalated, the soldiers opened fire. Crispus Attucks was the first to fall, the first casualty of the Boston Massacre, marking him as the first martyr of the American Revolution. His death was not in vain. The Sons of Liberty seized upon this tragic event, using the unjust death of Attucks as a rallying cry to strengthen the resolve of the colonists and to fuel their determination to resist British tyranny. In the wake of the Boston Massacre, the Sons of Liberty were not the only ones who sought to use the tragic event to further their cause. On the other side of the divide, a figure emerged, determined to uphold the principles of justice and fairness, even in the face of overwhelming public sentiment: John Adams. Adams, a lawyer and cousin of prominent Son of Liberty, Samuel Adams, was a staunch advocate for the rule of law. He believed that every person, regardless of their status or the public opinion against them, had the right to a fair and impartial trial. This conviction led him to make a controversial decision that would mark a significant moment in his career. When the British soldiers who had been involved in the Boston Massacre were put on trial, they found themselves in dire need of legal representation. Despite the potential damage to his reputation and the risk of aligning himself against popular sentiment, Adams stepped forward to defend the soldiers. He argued that they had acted in self-defense, facing an unruly mob that had provoked them into action. While his defense did not exonerate all the soldiers, 6 of the 8 soldiers were acquitted, largely due to Adams's persuasive arguments. This action demonstrated Adams's unwavering commitment to justice and his belief in the right to a fair trial, a value that would later shape his presidency and the principles of the nation he would come to lead. Even in the face of this perceived betrayal, the Sons of Liberty continued their resistance, using the trial and its outcome to further stoke anti-British sentiment among the colonists. On the night of March 5, 1770, the simmering tension between British soldiers and the colonists reached a boiling point, erupting violently into the tragic event known as the Boston Massacre. This incident, where British soldiers discharged their weapons into a crowd of colonists, took the lives of 5 individuals. The death of these colonists sparked public outrage and deepened the existing animosity towards British authority. This tragic event was seized upon by the Sons of Liberty, led by influential figures like Samuel Adams. They utilized the incident to amplify anti-British sentiment, turning it into a rallying cry that incited colonial resistance against the unjust governance of the British. One of the most iconic acts of defiance orchestrated by the Sons of Liberty was the Boston Tea Party. In response to the unpopular Tea Act imposed by the British in 1773, Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty devised a plan to protest this act of economic oppression. Their plan was audacious and symbolic. They disguised themselves as Mohawk Indians, a native tribe renowned for their fierce independence and resistance against foreign encroachment. This act of dressing as Mohawks was a potent symbol of freedom and resistance against the British rule. On the night of December 16th, they boarded 3 British ships harboring chests of tea from the East India Company. In a bold act of defiance, they threw 342 crates of tea into the Boston harbor, an act that was both financially damaging to the British and symbolically powerful. This act of rebellion, led by Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty, was a significant event in the lead-up to the American Revolution. It not only demonstrated their resistance against British economic policies, but also underscored their desire for freedom and self-governance, a sentiment that would fuel the fires of revolution in the years to come. Paul Revere's famous engraving depicting the Boston Massacre became a powerful symbol of British tyranny. Dr. Joseph Warren, a prominent Son of Liberty, played a pivotal role in publicizing the massacre and leveraging it to further unify colonists against British oppression. In summary, the Sons of Liberty, comprising influential leaders and impassioned activists, played a pivotal role in fomenting resistance against British rule. Through their organized efforts and effective propaganda, they succeeded in rallying public opinion, fostering a spirit of unity and igniting the fervor for independence that would culminate in the American Revolution. Their legacy endures as a testament to the collective will and determination of the colonists in their pursuit of liberty and self-governance.